This is Steve Zeltzer with WorkWeek Radio. The effort to privatize public education is not only taking place at K-12 with charters, there is also a campaign to take public land at Laney College and CCSF and turn it over to developers. We'll discuss how this privatization is affecting our community colleges with Laney professor Chris Weidenbach, CCSF lecturer Rick Baum, and CCSF music professor Madelein Mueller. Next, we will look at a play that commemorates the 1934 Minneapolis general strike. We will interview San Francisco playwright and actor Howard Petrick. Now to our first segment. Part of the gentrification ripping through Northern California is a drive to transfer and sell off community college properties and grab public land for developers. In Oakland, the owner of the Oakland A's, John J. Fisher, who is the son of K.I.P.P. Incorporated founders Donald Fisher and Doris F. Fisher. He is also the head of the K.I.P.P. Foundation, which has been privatizing education with his charter chain Rocketship. And last year, he gave $50,000 to the California Charter School Association to support anti-labor candidates throughout the state. His baseball company announced in September that he wanted part of the Laney College property for a new stadium. The trusteeship of City College of San Francisco took power out of the hands of the elected school board and ended up downsizing the college by tens of thousands of students and selling off the Gough Street property. Now, Mayor Ed Lee and the developers, along with Habitat for Humanity, are seeking to grab land owned by the San Francisco PUC and presently used by the college staff and students and turn it into high-priced condos. Earlier this month, AFT 2121 called for the PUC Balboa Reservoir to be turned over to the college instead of property developers. Joining us today on WorkWeek is Laney College English Department co-chair Chris Weidenbach. He is with Laney Land for Students, a coalition at Laney, and the Stay the Right Way Coalition with neighboring community organizations. Also, he is a rabid A's fan since 1998, going to 25 games a year. Also joining us is Madelein Mueller, is a music department chair at the City College of San Francisco, and Rick Baum, who is a lecturer, a member of AFT 2121 at the Ocean campus. Welcome all of you to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So, Chris, why don't you talk about this plan to take your property by the stadium and how that came about and how it would affect the college at Laney?
Well, it's important to know that our colleges are funded at a fairly low level, base funding in the state. Laney has had its trouble getting a proper allotment in the four-college district from our district administration over the whole time I've taught at Laney, which is 17 years now. We've had a lot of deferred maintenance, so the facilities and some infrastructure have it's reached a very expensive state of needed repairs. And it seems that the district and the Chancellor, Joel Laguerre, are considering the A's as a potential source of funding to shore up some of these deferred maintenance issues mainly.
And apparently the A's owner and their manager said that he wanted to take over part of your land, and he did that without even consulting with the board or with the staff or the faculty. Is that the case?
Well, that's a very big source of frustration for us. We constantly hear that the A's and from our chancellor's office, we also hear that they're extremely concerned that everyone be included and that transparency be maintained. But they've gotten this possibility pretty far down the road already without any consultation with the shared governance system. When we bring it up, they just answer by saying, oh, we want to make sure this is a win-win-win for everyone, that it's a project that everyone has input on. And they've already crossed this important line that says there will be a project. And we get to determine that. They don't get to determine it. It's not the A's choice. Like, we want to build there and we're going to do it. No, that's our choice. And we're really standing strong on that point that first we need to get our rightful place at the table to say yes or no to any kind of negotiations or any kind of planning. So we're holding that line. We're also, as I guess some of our faculty consider it, the only realistic position is to develop a set of principles for any partnerships or development that impacts us directly, and this certainly would. So we're developing that list as well, and there are people here in Peralta and at Laney who I call them stadium curious people who are saying, well, let's make sure if this has to happen, because frankly the Board of Trustees could make a bad decision and go forward with the A's, and if it happens, people want to make sure that we get our fair share of whatever benefits and help shape the community benefits agreements that might have to be made.
And you're listening to Chris Weidenbach. He is a professor at the Laney College and also with the group Laney Land for Students Coalition and Stay the Right Way. And I guess the owners of the A's look at that property as a great property for gentrification, for condos and development, much like the ballpark in San Francisco that was built. So I think that they see a lot of profits, not just the ballpark, but around the area.
Well, and the Fisher family with their retail businesses and some lumber interests and other things, I think everyone sees it as a huge development. Retail, restaurants. I know the A's president, Dave Cavell, talks about how much people wish they could go to a ballpark like Wrigley Field here in Oakland. And we have to remind him that stadium was built along with the neighborhood that it sits in. It was not plopped down after there were already people there heavily using the space.
Okay, thank you. Also joining us is Madelein Mueller and Rick Baum. Madelein, you have been fighting at City College for many, many years for a community arts building. The present one, although it has a beautiful Diego Rivera mural, is hardly adequate for arts. What has been the problem with this development that is being proposed at Balboa Park by developers, and how would that affect the creative arts building that you and others have been fighting for? In fact, the voters of San Francisco voted for.
Well, that is always, of course, being kept somewhat under the radar. We don't know exactly how it will affect. It can't possibly affect it well, because we are looking for finally completing the campus after 80 years of it not having an appropriate auditorium space, which is actually an accreditation issue. We are, I think, the only campus of the 114 that does not have this kind of space. The Diego Rivera Theater was built as a little theater. The big theater has been put off for as long as I've been around, which is 50 years, and we are out of compliance. The little theater holds 286 seats. It's hardly an auditorium. So the complex that we envision, a 650-seat major auditorium with two secondary ones, a building that would really hold a 1,200 aggregate kind of audience, is long overdue. We have the land. We fought off a housing development 30 years ago to get half of the PUC land, which properly is to be offered to another public entity before it's sold off privately.
And they haven't done that?
They haven't done that yet. They will probably sneak around and say they don't have to because, they seem to feel they have the rights to do so, but we're not sure. The PUC, it was on their agenda last week, and it was postponed, it being acknowledging a developer, not maybe absolutely handing the land over, but acknowledging a private developer, was put off, and we know people from that commission who said this was really the first time they knew anything about this project. So they're being kept in the dark, too, so you never know quite what's going on behind the scenes. But it certainly sounds like deja vu all over again with what I'm hearing now really for the first time in what's going on in Oakland. My goodness, all the same bad players, it would seem. I didn't realize it was the Fisher Group and the K.I.P.P Foundation. I don't know if you know, for years, Governor Brown's wife was the major lawyer for the K.I.P.P Foundation, and they have connections a lot with the Fishers. So you do sort of wonder how far up or down all of this goes. As a privatizing of public land, the voters in San Francisco have voted clearly twice and put the money aside to build the Performing Arts Center. We had it shovel-ready. We were one meeting away from it being started in 2012, and then was the takeover, and it was postponed. And then the state took back its $38 million to match the funding of the project. So we're kind of in the middle of trying to get all that back into play. But we're being told the same sort of stuff. Trust the developer. Hey, maybe you can make really good arrangements with these lovely altruistic people who will do the right thing for you. I hear this being said by by the developer. He's a lovely, pleasant man, saying we will all win.
They're looking out, a win for all. This is Madelein Mueller, who is the professor at City College and Department of the Music there. And also joining us is Rick Baum, who has been investigating who are the people behind this project. And one of the things you discovered, Rick, was that there's a nonprofit group, Habit for Humanity, that is part of this whole development process. How did you find that out?
Well, I went to the PUC website about their meeting that they were supposed to have a week ago, and I think they've already decided on this group called Avalon Bay as the main developer. They're a corporation based in Delaware, and they have two other partners, one of them being Habitat for Humanity, which I was really kind of astounded because I always think of Habitat for Humanity as working on housing for very low-income people, and I was surprised that they'd be part of this development. I spoke with someone from there who said, well, they will be building some facilities or houses for low-income people making under something like $45,000 a year, and that maybe 50 families would get housing on the project. They're planning to build something like 1,100 housing units. And the person said, don't you want low-income people having housing? And as everyone knows, housing is very desperately needed throughout the Bay Area, especially for low-income people. And I said, of course, I'd want housing for people like that. But in the meantime, this land that the PUC owns that they have not used for years has been a parking lot for students that they need to use. It gets filled sometimes, and I've seen sometimes say they can't even find a parking space even with the space that's now available. And so essentially what would be happening is that this public land, which is land owned by PUC, is being given to a private developer who's going to be making money out of it. This Avalon Bay's built some other housing in the area, and they charge $3,000 a month, from what someone else said, for a studio apartment. And I was thinking, boy, if they're charging $3,000 a month, how can anyone afford to live there? If you make San Francisco's minimum wage, you're making less than $30,000 a year, so you wouldn't even have enough money to afford a studio. But the bottom line is that what's happening is that this is public land that's serving a vital need for students at City College. Most students at City College are working class, they're low income, and their needs would be sacrificed so that this private developer can make money. And I find that very troubling, that that is what the college apparently is cooperating with regards to how they want to use this space.
And you're listening to Rick Baum, who is a lecturer, a member of AFT 2121 at the Ocean Campus. I mean, this story seems to be similar both in the East Bay and in San Francisco. Developers have plans for these public lands and apparently have not really consulted with the union, the staff, and the workers and the students about how it would affect them. And this land grab is also being supported by the politicians, apparently Mayor Ed Lee, and even the members of the trustees. I know I interviewed Mandelman, and he was saying that it was all for the public good. You have any thoughts on that, Madelein and Rick, that this is going to be for the public good?
Well, I think it's going to be sold, I'll go first, as a win-win situation, just like I heard the situation at Laney. Everybody's going to win. But students who have a need for parking are being displaced. It's like urban removal, term that used to be used when they were redeveloping neighborhoods and inner cities in the past. They were pushing out the poor people, people of color, so that developers could come in and make a lot of money. This would be the same thing, because if there's not parking, the student population at City College will decline because they need a place to park.
And Madelein, the building of the Creative Arts Center, which you fought for many, many years, why has that taken a second-place role in the development of City College? It seems like it's unimportant, really, to the people who are running City College at this point.
Well, right now at this point, it's people say that it's their top priority, but when you actually plan out when it can be done, it's kick the can down the road many years. So I sometimes wonder if they really understand what they're saying when they say it's our first priority, and oh, by the way, we'll start building in 2022 or something. I mean, that just doesn't work that way. There has to be something much more immediate, and my feeling is they while everybody says administratively, we really want this building, it's so necessary, the fact that they even make a gesture about putting it off means that, well, then the housing goes in first, and then golly gee whiz, there's no place to park an audience. You can't have these kinds of events that the neighborhood desperately needs, as well as the college. College. There is no really operative community hall for performing arts between downtown San Francisco and San Mateo that's available to community groups and neighbor groups and bring in program groups and choirs and so forth. It would pay for itself time over because that kind of facility is just not part of this part of San Francisco. There's no other municipal community that I know of, and I researched, that has a dearth of this kind of facility for so many thousands of people, which include not only this part of San Francisco, but Daly City, which is absolutely without anything. So there are whole bunches of folks, as I say, who really want this. It's like negotiating with Jell-O. Nobody says no, but the logistics mean, the longer you put it off, the more less likely it will happen, because 1,100 units of housing will just suck up every possibility of logistically having such a hall. So that part of it I'm concerned about.
Okay, and we've been talking with Madelein Mueller and Chris Weidenbach, who's also joining us from Laney College. You have a coalition now, or a number of coalitions, of not only staff, professors, and students, but also the community who want to protect the community and don't want gentrification in that area. And you're meeting and organizing, I see.
Yeah, and I really think of this as kind of the silver lining in this situation. We don't have a good history with my faculty and students and staff at Laney. We don't have much of a history of collaborating with the organizations in the neighborhoods adjacent to us, East Lake to the east, southeast, and
15
Chinatown.
seconds.
So yeah, I'm very excited to be working with the Asian Pacific Environmental Network, the Chinatown Coalition, the Indian People's Organizing Committee, and other groups, and we're going to succeed.
Okay, very good. Well, thanks for talking to all of you, and I understand there's a Facebook page, Stay the Right Way, and Stay the Right Way hashtag. And people can contact you, as well as Action Network, Stay the Right Way. And there's also a petition on change.org, Stop the Transfer of PUC Reservoirs. Thanks for all of you to be on WorkWeek Radio to talk about this important issue of protecting our public community colleges. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good luck, you guys.
Bye.
One day more, one day more. People, let me tell you what we're fighting for. We're fighting for our future, don't you understand? And we don't need your pity, we just need your helping hand to fight one day more, one day more. If the company holds out 20 years, we'll hold out one day more. One day more, one day more. If the company holds out 20 years, we'll hold out one day more.
We organized a strike headquarters for a military campaign. On Tuesday morning, as the sun came up, there were 20,000 spectators in the marketplace. A radio station there, broadcasting live. The newsreel companies were all there with their cameras to record what was going to happen that day. Several hundred special deputies and squad cars of police started coming into the market. Now, we're not for killing people. We're not for people getting hurt. But it was the police and the special deputies that created the violence, and we defended our right to strike.
One of the most important general strikes in the 1930s was the Minneapolis Teamsters strike in 1934. Like the San Francisco general strike, there was the use of the National Guard to crush the striking workers and also battles on the streets. San Franciscan Howard Petrick has written a play called The Fight for 52 Cents. It is based around the role of one of the organizers, Ray Dunn, whose brother was also a striker. Ray had been through the grinder. He had been beaten up several times by the police and picket lines, attacked in the street by armed thugs, thrown into jail and confined in a stockade under military guard by the governor. He was a strike leader, and Howard Petrick has brought the lessons of that strike back for today. It will play tomorrow night at the Marsh Theater in San Francisco. Welcome to WorkWeek Radio, Howard.
Welcome, Steve. Thanks for having me.
And this play, although it took place in 1934, it seems like the times for workers are growing very similar as far as difficult conditions for workers to survive.
Yes, the situation is quite similar, I think. I started doing this about 4 or 5 years ago when I noticed how the recession was affecting people, especially in the center of the country, driving across the country every year, going to theater festivals and seeing small towns that were just being boarded up and shut down. And I had notes from talking with Ray Dunn. I knew Ray Dunn when I was 20 years old, and I used to sit and talk with him afternoons. And I had all these notes, and I thought, this just reminds me of what's happening today, and how they fought back would be a good lesson for people to understand.
And those two strikes were very important in American working class history. They were both successful in establishing the unions, and they were won despite the National Guard and massive military repression. That was unsuccessful in stopping these workers.
Yes, well, they took a class struggle approach. They didn't rely on any of the politicians or they knew they had to do their own defense. They couldn't trust the police, and they knew they would come under attack by everyone, which is what happened. I mean, they were attacked by the union leaders. The Teamster International never sanctioned one of those strikes. And they were attacked by the local and state and federal government, and they organized the workers to be able to defend themselves. And not only the strikers that were in the union, but they reached out to the farmers, and they provided ways for the farmers to bring their produce and animals into the city and sell it, and they gave them permits so they could travel through the city when other trucks couldn't. And they organized the unemployed so that they wouldn't scab on them, and they brought the unemployed into the union as a section and helped them in their struggle to get social benefits. And they did a number of things that had never been done before, like they had a daily strike newspaper to get out the information, and they had a huge strike headquarters where they built a stage and put in a PA system that could be heard all throughout the headquarters and the surrounding streets, so that every night when they had a strike meeting, they could tell the workers what was actually happening, and they wouldn't have to believe the lies they heard on the radio and television, or radio and newspapers.
And, of course, Ray Dunn was one of the leaders, and wasn't that one of their precepts, that they wanted to have a Democratic-run union where the workers themselves controlled what happened?
Yes. They set out in the beginning, the first strike had a strike committee of 75 workers that were elected from the 22 major trucking companies that they were striking. And so the workers that were involved in the strike, they were electing their own leadership. It wouldn't be a business agent or some small committee in the union that would decide the strike. The strike committee of 75 would approve things and take it to the membership. And when they went to the second strike in July, it was a committee of 100. They expanded it because they expanded the strike, and of course by then they had 7,000 members in the union. And they did things like have a women's auxiliary, and that helped to bring the women in so that the strikers' wives and girlfriends and family would understand what was going on. They wouldn't be sitting at home wondering where their men were, although they oftentimes did, because they didn't know if they were on a picket line or maybe in jail or in the hospital.
And the ILW as well had a democratic structure. Why do you think that there haven't been any general strikes since 1946, the last general strike, which actually was held in Oakland?
Well, I think that a lot of things have happened in the union movement since, like the whole leadership of Local 574, which was the local that carried out these strikes in Minneapolis. They were all attacked by the Smith Act, in 1940 and thrown in prison. And of course, the leadership were revolutionaries. They were communists. They were fighting for, on a class struggle approach. They didn't take a class collaborationist approach of, well, let's do this and see if we can get, the politicians on our side. They looked at what the problem was with the working class and listened to their grievances and set a program to solve that, and they held out.
Okay.
They did it.
It sounds like it's going to be a very exciting play, and there is going to be a one performance tomorrow night at the Marsh Theater. Where's the Marsh Theater located, Howard?
The Marsh Theater is located in San Francisco at 1062 Valencia Street. It's right near 22nd Street, and it's about 3 blocks from the 24th Street BART. And
how would they get tickets?
They can get tickets online at themarsh.org. Go to the Marsh Rising series, and my show is listed there. Or they can call the Marsh and get the tickets there between 1 and 4 o'clock. So it's a little late to do that now. Or buy them at the door. The tickets are $10, and I think this is I've done it to make it an interesting story, and it's a part of history that we didn't learn in schools.
And obviously, that's important today with the kind of struggles workers are facing in this country and around the world. So it sounds like an exciting play, and we have a San Franciscan who's written about it. So thanks for joining us on WorkWeek Radio, and I hope you're able to have success, and I understand you might be able to have it this coming July during Labor Fest as well.
That's true, yeah. I would look forward to that.
Okay, well, I want to thank you, Howard, for joining us. This has been WorkWeek Radio on KPFA and the Pacifica Network. Thanks to our line operator, Cosme Torrey, and our engineer, Erica Bridgman. You can reach WorkWeek Radio at workweek@kpfa.org. You can also find us on SoundCloud at WorkWeek Radio. Solidarity has no borders.
I hitchhiked from Chicago, and a man walked up and said, "This is a union town, all down the line."